If you ask my wife, she'll tell you that she doesn't believe I'm the best driver. If you call my insurance company, they'll probably have something else to say. I've been with them quite a while, and I am now an Emerald member because I have such a nice driving record. I got all my driving skills, as the old song from the 90s would say, from my mama. I get it from my mama. My mama taught me how to drive because my mama is an amazing driver. And I can recall a time when my mom allowed me to drive and she was giving me directions to a particular destination that we were going to. And we made it to the destination safely. We didn't have any accidents, no scares. We got to where we were going, and that's wonderful. But an issue arose as we got in the car and prepared to go to our next destination. As we got in the car, I strapped on my seatbelt. I turned the radio down just a little bit, made sure my mirrors were where they needed to be. And as I prepared to put the car into drive, I looked over at my mom and asked, "Mom, how do I get back to where we came from?" And my mom said something to me that I believe is similar to what Samuel is saying to Saul in this text. My mom looked at me with a little bit of frustration and even a little bit of concern and said, "Son, were you not paying attention to how you got here? Were you not paying attention to how you got here?" What am I saying on tonight? I was in a rough space because here I was about to go into my next, but I could not properly get into my next because I had forgotten how I got to my now. I want to warn you as we prepare to go into 2022 to not be so focused on the destination that you miss the value in the direction. Can I say that one more time? Don't be so focused on the destination that you miss the value that's in the direction. Here I was at a standstill, unable to get to this place called next because I had not taken down properly the value of that thing that was my now. And so my mom was trying to stress to me, "Son, don't be so excited about getting to the destination that you forget the directions." Because the truth of the matter is, what my mom was trying to get me to understand is that the destination will always be there, but I might not always be here to give you direction. I want to encourage somebody on tonight as we prepare to go through this text. Make sure you're paying attention to how you got here. And if I were to give today's sermon a title, it would be something along those same lines. Don't forget how you got here. Saul is the king of Israel. And Saul's story is a very interesting one. If you read Saul's humble beginnings, you might find yourself in shock as to how he's found himself getting rebuked by the prophet Samuel. Saul starts off like most of the figures in the Bible start off. He starts off running great. He starts off on fire. He starts off listening to everything God tells him to do. He starts off with a zeal to do the will of God. But as time went by, I believe Saul got so focused on the destination that he's now about to miss what God has for him in the next because he's forgotten his direction. And Samuel is trying to rebuke him back to that place. Samuel is trying to remind him, "Saul, you ran well, my brother, but did you forget how you got here?" See, what's interesting is Saul has disobeyed a commandment of the Lord. If you read just a couple of verses above where we brought in tonight's text, Saul has disobeyed a direct commandment of God. He did what he wanted to do. He did what will become the testimony of the children of Israel, what was right in his own eyes. He did what he wanted to do. And Samuel comes and he's coming to let him know that God is not pleased with where you've ended up. God is not pleased with this direction that you've taken. God is not pleased with how you're moving nowadays. And I promise you, this is not a rebuke message to us. It's going to be an encouraging message, but we have to dig through what's going on with this brother Saul in this situation. And ironically, this humble fella named Saul, who started off so humble, when Samuel comes to rebuke him for doing whatever he wants to do, he's told that Saul was here, but now he's gone down after building a monument to himself somewhere else. This does not sound like the same humble fella that God chose to be king over Israel. He's forgotten how he got here. I want to share with you tonight 3 reasons most of us have arrived where we are, because the truth of the matter is, as Saul begins to reflect on how he got to where he is, I believe as he reflected on that question that Saul has posed to him, did you not forget that you come from the least tribe? Did you not forget that you were once little in your own eyes? Did you not forget that not only do you come from the smallest tribe, but you come from the most insignificant family in the tribe? How did you get here? And I believe Saul, again, got to where he was the same way many of us got to where we are. And so I want to give you 3 reasons most of us have arrived where we are and why it's important to remember that as we prepare to go where we're going. Again, 3 reasons we must arrive. We have arrived where we are. I pray that you're taking notes. The first reason I believe we arrive to where we are and why Saul also arrived to where he was is because the world has issues. I'm going to say that again. The reason you've ended up where you are, the reason Saul was where he was, which is the king of Israel, the reason he ascended to the highest heights, the reason he found promotion in the Lord, the reason he found himself, even though he was from the smallest tribe, in the highest seat in the land, is because the world has issues. That's the first I want to give you tonight. Now, some of you are saying, Pastor Mike, how are you saying that we've found the success that we found as a result of the world having issues? Well, according to Saul's story, the only reason Saul had a position is because the people of Israel had a problem. The only reason Saul is where he is because the people had a problem. And I would argue that the reason you are where you are, the reason you have the job that you have, the reason you're in the position in ministry that you are, the reason you're in the marriage that you're in, the reason that you grew up where you grew up and are now where you are is because the world has issues. You are in the position you are in because the world has a problem. The only reason Saul had a position is because the people had a problem. Now, if Saul is only where he is because the people had a problem, then that means that Saul is the solution to the problem. And this is where I want to start us on tonight. The first thing I need you to remember so that you don't forget how you got where you are, I need you to remember that you're the solution to one of the world's problems. I want you to make that your declaration on tonight. I am the solution to some of this world's problems. Can I help you? Many of you think that you woke up just because your mind said get up. Some of you think you woke up this morning because your alarm clock went off. Some of you think you woke up this morning because your boo thing or your spouse tapped you on the shoulder. Some of you think you woke up because the sun came shining through your blinds. But can I be honest with you? The only reason you woke up on this morning is because the Lord woke you up this morning. And the only reason the Lord woke you up this morning is because there was an issue that remained unresolved. You were necessary for something God wanted to do today. I'm going to be honest. There are many mornings I wake up and I say, God, why in the world would you wake me up? There are so many other people who have more qualifications than me. So many people who've accomplished more than I've accomplished. So many people who have gone further in life than I've gone. Why did you wake me up? And he reminds me, son, I woke you up because you're necessary. I wish someone would put that in the comments on tonight. I'm here because I'm necessary, and I'm necessary because the world has a need. When you understand that you're the solution, you take your presence and your absence a lot more serious. I want you to write that down. When you understand that you're the solution, you take your presence and absence a lot more serious. What am I saying? When you understand that you're the solution, you're very selective about where you are and where you are not. I'm going to say that again. When you understand that you're the solution to a problem that God deemed you necessary to resolve, you're very selective about where you do and do not spend time. Why? Because you understand that there is a solution that is tied to your presence. And so your presence cannot be everywhere, because if you're not where your presence is needed to be the solution, then the solution is going lacking and there are problems running rampant where you should be. Okay, let me help you. Life, can I get y'all ready for 2022? Because this is going to be a year where your hands are going to get dirty. When you don't show up, a solution is missing. When you don't show up, we're a solution short. I know you think that pastors just like to have churches filled with people, but the truth of the matter is we know our sheep and we understand which sheep are solutions to other sheep's problems. And I know you woke up and on Sunday morning and you thought, no one's going to miss me. No one's going to notice that I'm not there. But the person who needed your encouragement will notice. The person who needed your seed will notice. The person that needed your hug will notice. The person who needed an encouraging word from you will notice. That person that just needed to see your smile will notice. You are the solution to a problem, and when you are not there, your absence is felt. When you're the solution, you understand that there's value tied not only to your presence, but also your absence, which brings me to my first thought. When you don't turn up like you should, things don't turn out like they should. I'm going to say that again. When you don't turn up like you should, things don't turn out like they should. Can I tell you the reason your boss blows your phone up when you take a day off, but maybe don't call your other coworkers? Because you're a child of God, and wherever you are, a solution is. So when you decide that you just don't feel like going to work that morning, a solution is missing from the conference room. When you decide that you just not going to show up for work in the morning, a solution is missing on the other end of that telephone. When you decide that you're just not going to show up for work that morning, a solution is missing from that team meeting that's being had. Your absence is felt because tied to your presence is a solution. You're only in the position you're in because the world has a problem. You're only at the church you're at because that church had a problem you're the solution to. The reason you live in the neighborhood you live in is because that neighborhood had a problem that you're the solution to. The only reason you're in the family that you were birthed into is because your family had a problem that God wanted you to be the solution to. I'm trying to help somebody because you're trying to get away from the very place that God is pushing you to because you're a solution to that problem. When you don't turn up like you should, things don't turn out like they should. The reason it hurt my heart when I was not here for those 2 weeks and I was battling COVID-19, because I understood that I'm a solution to problems here. But what I'm so glad about is that God so allowed me to pour myself out onto the people here at AL3C that even though I was not physically here, my presence was still here through them and ministry continued to flow. I'm trying to help you understand that you are the solution to a problem. So you can't be everywhere, but you also can't not be where God needs you. When you understand that you're the solution, you take your presence and absence a lot more seriously. But beyond that, when you understand that you're the solution, you take people's words and actions a lot less personal. Saul struggled. Paul, they rhyme. Saul struggled with insecurity. He struggled with what was said to him. He struggled to what was done to him. He struggled with what was done around him. He struggled with what was happening in his kingdom. He struggled with voices and influence, I believe, because he forgot that he's the solution to the problem. And because he forgot that he's the solution to the problem, words and actions began to affect him in ways that it should not have. Can I help you? Because you're the solution to a problem, you cannot take it personal when people come into your life and do not stay in your life. Because you're the solution to a problem, you cannot take it personal when people get what they need from you and then have a whole lot to say about you. You can't take it personal when folks come and go because you're the solution to their problem. Which means the moment they no longer have a problem, you no longer have a position. Your value is distinctly tied in some cases to people's needs. And when they no longer have the need, they feel they no longer need you. And I'm trying to help somebody on tonight that it's not personal. It's just that they no longer have the problem. Now, it's not to suggest that another problem has not arisen, because folks shouldn't just drop you like a hot potato. But the truth of the matter is, some people don't know how to value you beyond what it is you have to offer. And many of us have held grudges against people. Many of us have allowed the way we minister to be influenced. Many of us have allowed our performance at work to slack. Many of us have allowed how we show up for our families to be different, because they used us until they used us up. And then they left. And I need you to know tonight, it wasn't because you did anything wrong. It wasn't because you said anything wrong. There's no need to carry a grudge. There's no need to become what Erykah Badu called a bag lady, carrying all this nonsense that folks have left because you have regrets. You have unfulfilled desires. You have unmet expectations. And now you're carrying all these bags because the people you help hurt you because they didn't hang around. And I need you to know that not everyone you help is going to hang around. You're the solution to the problem. And when there's no longer a problem, many times there's no longer a need for the connection to remain. Let me ask you a question. When's the last time you called 911 just because? Think about it. When's the last time, except for some of us who when we were younger didn't know any better, but when's the last time you called 911 just to have a conversation? When's the last time you called 911 to ask them how they're doing? When's the last time you called 911 just to check up on them and make sure they're okay? We don't call 911 when things are going right. We call 911 because something has gone wrong. Can I help you on tonight? God did not call you because you did something right. God has called you because something went wrong. And it would be crazy for a fireman to show up to your house, put your fire out, and then just hang around for the rest of the night. If a fireman did that, you would start looking at him sideways like, sir, when are you going home? Sir, when are you returning to the fire department? Because you understand that it's his job to come meet the need that you have. There's a fire in your house. And the moment there's no longer a fire, there's no longer a need for the connection. Some of us are looking at folks different because we met their need. And then we were no longer necessary to them. But can I encourage you there? Though you may no longer be necessary to them, you're always necessary to him. That once this assignment is done, it doesn't mean you no longer have a need. It just means that he can now trust you with another assignment. But if you allow your emotions to get entangled in the last assignment, God will be slow to hand you the next assignment. Some of you are saying, God, why is it that I'm not getting the calls like I used to? Why is it that I'm not getting the opportunities as I used to? Why is it I'm being looked over for certain things at work? It's because you're still holding a grudge against the last assignment. And God is saying, listen, until you let that assignment go and recognize that you're no longer necessary for that chapter, but I've written another chapter. Look unto Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. I know that last situation made you feel like your life was going to become a tragedy, but God is still writing your story. God has written happily ever after, where the enemy has written tragedy. We don't call 911 when things are going right. We call 911 because something has gone wrong. And if I can encourage you on tonight, I need you to know that you are Earth's solution. You are Earth's response to, heaven's response to Earth's 911 call. The first reason we've arrived where we are is because the world has issues. But we need to remember that this world has issues and we're the solution. So every day that we wake up, it's a day that we wake up understanding that I have something to do and I have somewhere to be. I don't have time to waste because someone's life is depending upon me being somewhere. I don't have time to waste because someone's next is dependent upon me being there. I don't have time to waste because someone's not going to make it to that next place if I'm not in the place I need to be. I'm a solution to a problem because the world has issues. Not only has Saul arrived where he is because the world has issues, but Saul has arrived where he is because God is intentional. And we've arrived where we are because God is intentional. What am I saying? The people chose the seat, but God chose the Saul. Don't miss that. The people chose the seat, but God chose the Saul. I'm going to say that one more time. The people chose the seat, but God chose the Saul. What am I saying? If you go back to the beginning of Saul's journey, the text lets us know that the people have gotten fed up with Samuel. They're tired of Samuel. They're tired of Samuel's sons. His sons had been moving corrupt, and Samuel was not reprimanding them to the level they believed he should be reprimanding them. And so they come to Samuel. They call the man of God and say, listen, man of God, we don't know what you're doing right now. We don't know what you've been doing, but we want a king. Now, what's funny is they say they want a king because Samuel has not been doing what he was supposed to do, and his sons have not been doing what they were supposed to do. But let them keep talking. Let them keep talking, because the more they talk, the more their heart actually comes out. Because they then go on to say, give us a king so that we can be like every other nation. See, Samuel was the scapegoat. But the truth of the matter is, Samuel wasn't the problem. Similarity was the problem. Samuel wasn't the problem. Similarity wasn't the problem. The problem is they stopped looking at what God was doing and started looking at what other nations were doing. And nothing gets us in trouble quicker when we take our eyes off of God and start looking at what our neighbors are doing. There's an old saying, the grass always looks greener on the other side. But I remember my great pastor and bishop preached at one time, the reason the grass sometimes looks greener on the other side is because it's either artificial turf or it has a lot more dookie that's been thrown on it. And many of us are desiring something, not recognizing how stinky the situation really is until we get in it. Their true hearts are exposed. They say that the issue is Samuel, but the truth of the matter is the issue is similarity. They have a desire to be just like everybody else. And so the people choose the seat. They don't choose Saul, they choose the seat. They say, we don't care who's in the position, we just want the position. And so since they didn't care who was in the position, God said, fine, if you want a king, you'll get the king I give you. And so the people choose the seat, but God chooses the Saul. And this brings me to the first reason why this is important and why we need to remember this. The fact that God chose the Saul means Saul was chosen. You need to remember that God is intentional. And because God is intentional, that means you've been chosen. When you understand that you're chosen, no one can convince you that you're a mistake. When you understand that you're chosen, no one can convince you that you're a mistake. See, many of us struggle with that which God has called us to do. We struggle when we get to where God has called us to be because we're always questioning in the back of our mind, how did I get here? We're always questioning in the back of our mind, what am I doing here? We question in the back of our mind, do I really belong here? Did God make a mistake? And I want to encourage you to make that your declaration. I am intentional. I am not a mistake. That God knew what he was doing when he called me. That God considered all of my faults. God considered all of my shortcomings. God considered all of my issues. God considered every place I failed. God considered it. And even after God considered it, God chose me. I'm not a mistake. Which brings me to another thought. We have to accept the fact that people may mistake who we are, but we never have to accept the idea that who we are is a mistake. I'm going to say that one more time. That's tweetable. We have to accept the fact that people may mistake who we are, but we never have to accept the idea that who we are is a mistake. I know folks don't understand how you got to where you are, but it wasn't a mistake. I know folks don't understand how someone comes from where you come from and gets to where you've gotten, but I need you to know it wasn't a mistake. I know folks are trying to wrap their mind around the fact that you dropped out of high school, but here you are, the supervisor over people who have 2 and 3 degrees. It wasn't a a mistake. I know folks are trying to figure out how in the world did you get that position in ministry when I know what your life looked like last year. I need you to know it was not a mistake. We can't stop people from mistaking who we are, but we do have a choice in accepting the idea that we are a mistake. And one of the tragedies, I believe, of Saul is that I believe he forgot that he was chosen. And because he forgot that he was chosen, I believe he fell victim of the same sin that the people fell victim to. That he began comparing, that he began looking for sameness, that he began to try to see himself in them. And the great irony of Saul's fall is that Saul was actually called to teach the people how to be obedient, yet the sin that causes him to lose the throne is the sin of disobedience. Can I help somebody? When you're not intentional about bettering the problem, you will unintentionally become the problem. Can I say that one more time? When you are not intentional about bettering the problem, you will unintentionally become the very problem God created you to solve. We have to accept the fact that people may mistake who we are, but we never have to accept the idea that who we are is a mistake. You have not gotten where you are as a result of a mistake. It was not coincidence. It was not happenstance. And here's the crazy thing. I know it doesn't make sense for you to be sitting at the tables you're sitting at. I know it doesn't make sense for you to have the friends that you have. I know it doesn't make sense for you to be in the marriage that you're in. I know it doesn't make sense for you to experience some of the experiences that you're experiencing. But I need you to know with confidence that God considered who you were, and God still chose you for what he's chosen you to do. We need to understand that we're chosen, and because we're chosen, no one can convince us that we're a mistake. But beyond that, when you understand that you're chosen, other voices and influences become a lot smaller. When you understand that you're chosen, other voices and influences become a lot smaller. One of Saul's issues is that he began to allow the voices of other people to become louder than the voice of God. On numerous occasions, Saul found himself overstepping his boundary, doing too much because he was yielding to the voices of the people. People were telling him God is taking too long. God hasn't shown up yet. God isn't going to show up. And as a result of him listening to these voices, he stopped listening to the great voice of God. Which brings me to my next thought. If God didn't consult them at all about it, then don't give them all that control over it. I'm going to say that again. If God didn't consult them at all about it, then don't give them all that control over it. Some of you are allowing people to influence you regarding things that God never consulted them about. If God didn't talk to you about it, then I don't have to talk to you about it. If God didn't consult you about my next move, then I'm not giving you control over my next move. If God did not consult you regarding who I should marry, then I'm not consulting you regarding who I should marry. If God didn't consult you about this next step of ministry I'm taking, then I don't have to consult you about this next step in ministry I'm taking. But whomever God has consulted about it has some say-so in it. So if he consulted your pastor about it, then your pastor has something to say about it. If he consulted your spouse about it, your spouse has something to say about it. The problem is when we let all these other voices, these voices that have no vested interest in our next place, control our next place. The devil is a lie. If God did not consult you at all about it, then I'm not going to give you all that control over it. Some of you need to put in the comments, I'm taking my control back. There are some things that you've allowed people to converse with you about and converse you out of, and God never consulted them about it. The devil is a lie. I'm talking less to the small voices, and I'm talking more to the big voice. If God didn't consult them at all about it, then don't give them all that control over it, which means if they did not choose you, then they can't replace you. If they did not put you in the position, then they can't remove you from the position. Okay, if they did not give you the promotion, then they cannot give you a demotion. If they aren't responsible for that money being in your account, then they can't tell you what to do with it. We have to get to a place where we understand that I'm only where I am because God is intentional. That God did not make a mistake putting me here. That God did not make a mistake trusting me with that. That God did not make a mistake calling me to this thing. My God is intentional. And because my God made a decision, it don't matter how many decisions you make around me. All that matters is the decision that God has made about me. Can I help somebody? There was this board of directors, and one of the members on the board, most of the other board members had a problem with. It wasn't that this person did anything out of the norm. It wasn't that this person did anything to really bother anybody, but they just really did not like him. They did not like the way he did things. They did not like the way he viewed things. They did not like the way he perceived things. And so they had a meeting and said, hey, we're going to call a meeting to get rid of this board member. Will you vote with me? And one went to another, and another went to another, and another went to another. All of them except one board member who was away. So these board members call the board member that they want to get rid of, but they don't make a call to the other board member that was missing. And they tell them, listen, we're going to take a vote today. We really don't want to have you on this board. And so we're going to get rid of you from this board. And, we're all owners. We all have stake in this thing. And so we're going to go majority rules. And so one by one, they began to vote, and they voted to get rid of this board member. Right as they got to the last person, the board member who was not there walked in and said, I heard that there was a voting taking place on today. I want to cast my vote. They said, well, you can cast your vote, but most of us have already voted, and we voted to get rid of this person. He said, well, that's fine, but I need you to understand one thing. I need you to understand that you all are minority owners. I am a majority owner. See, for those of you who don't know the difference, a majority owner has more stock in the business than the minority owners. And even if it's just 1%, you can be a majority owner if you have that one extra percent. What they failed to realize is that the person that they did not invite to the party had more say than they did. Can I help you? It's not about the number of votes. It's about the weight of the vote. There are many people who wrote you off, but God wrote you in. And the difference between them and God is they had more votes, but God had more weight. I'm trying to help somebody on tonight. There's some folks that threw you away. Many folks threw you away and thought they had thrown you away for good. But the reason you keep popping back up is because they had more votes, but God's vote had more weight. There's some folks that said you don't belong here, and they thought they got rid of you, but you keep popping back up because they have more votes, but God's vote has more weight. There's some folks that are determined to keep you away from your next place, but the reason you're still progressing forward in spite of them pulling you back is because they have more votes, but God's vote has more weight. What am I saying? Stop letting minority owners in your life have more say than the majority owner. Before he formed you in the womb, he knew you. He sanctified you, and he ordained you with purpose. Where were they when God formed you in the womb? Where were they when God brought you forth into the earth? Where were they when God kept you through those attacks? Where were they when God protected you in that rough neighborhood? Where were they when God moved you through that school system, even though you had a learning disability? Where were they when God cultivated your gift, and when they said you had no value, you found value in the gift, that treasure that God placed in that earthen vessel? Where were they? Stop allowing minority owners in your life have more say than the majority owner. Our God is intentional. The reason you are where you are is because the world has issues. The reason you are where you are is because God is intentional. And the reason you are where you are is because you have insecurities. I know you weren't ready for that one. I know some of you are like, Pastor Mike, you can't tell me that I've gotten as far in life as I've gotten, because I have insecurities. See, the reason that don't make sense to you is because to the world that does not make sense. The world says you have to be the best of the best. Can I tell you what God says? If you look at the story of Saul, what you'll realize and recognize is that Saul was not the best among the best. Saul was the best among the least. What am I saying? Saul was a Benjamite. I know the text says that Saul was the tallest. I know the text says that Saul was the most handsome. I know it says that Saul was the finest amongst all that were there. But what you have to remember is, in spite of him being the tallest, in spite of him being the most handsome, in spite of him being the finest, he was still a Benjamite. Now, if you know anything about the Benjamites, they were the smallest tribe of Israel. Not only were they the smallest tribe of Israel, but this is why Saul was so shocked when Samuel told him, you're going to be the next king of Israel. You're going to sit in the highest seat in the land. Saul had a problem with that because out of his own mouth, he says, not only am I from the smallest tribe of Israel, but my family is the most insignificant amongst the tribe. Saul was not the best among the best. Saul was the best among the least. Can I help somebody on today? I know the world prides itself on being the best of the best, but as a believer, we do the opposite. God, I thank you that I was the best amongst the least. I know it's messing up your ideology. I know it's messing up your morning affirmations that you have. I know that it's contrary, but the Bible says he takes the foolish things to confound the wise. Can I make my point? The reason I need you to remember that you're not necessarily the best amongst the best, but you are the best amongst the least, because when you understand that what qualified you was that you were unqualified, you stop trying to prove things. See, when you believe you're the best of the best, you always got something to prove. But when you understand that you're the best of the least, you recognize that God chose me anyway. I ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. I'm trying to set somebody free on tonight. When you understand that what qualified you was that you were unqualified, you stop trying to prove things. Listen, I don't try to prove nothing when I walk in the office. I already recognize that my education did not get me there, that graduation did not get me there, that articulation did not get me there, the family relation did not get me there. The only thing that got me there was hesitation. I'm messing you up. I'm messing you up. Some of you saying, wait a minute. So it wasn't your education. It wasn't the graduation. It wasn't your occupation. It wasn't your articulation. It was not your family relation. It was your hesitation. Yes. The only thing that got me where I am is I recognized how little I could do and understood that if I'm going to make it to the next place, I have to acknowledge what I can't do and trust God to do through me what I can't do myself. I've had the opportunity to sit at tables surrounded by people whose degrees could bury me. I've had the opportunity to sit at tables with people who were entrepreneurs, and here I was, an employee. I've had opportunities to sit and talk with CEOs, millionaires. I don't think I've met a billionaire yet, but at least a millionaire. Even though I don't have that many zeros in the bank, it's because I understood that God could do through me what I could not do myself. So I could sit at the table comfortably. I'm trying to help somebody. I could sit at the table comfortably because I understand that no matter what they have, I have the one who has me. And as long as I have the one who has me, he's more than whatever they have. When you understand that what qualified you was that you were unqualified, you stop trying to prove things. And this brings me to another thought. Men want to see how impressive you are. God wants to see how instructable you are. Men want to see how impressive you are. God wants to see how instructable you are. This is why as you continue to go down in the text that we read tonight, you come across a phrase that we love to quote that says, obedience is better than sacrifice. What Samuel was trying to get Saul to understand is that God could care less about you saving the best animals for your sacrifice, because God told you to kill all the animals. God told you to kill the best animals. He said kill the worst animals. He did not say kill the worst animals and bring me the best animals. He said, no, kill everything that's in the land. But he took it upon himself. He thought he knew a little better than God. He forgot how he got to where he was. He forgot that he was from the most insignificant family. He forgot that he was from the smallest tribe. And he started to believe his own hype. He started to believe that he was everything the people were saying that he was. And the sin of some of us is that we've forgotten where we've come from. Now that we've gotten where we are, we've forgotten where we come from. The seasoned saints used to say it this way: boy, don't you ever forget where you come from. Don't get where you're going and forget where you come from. There's a value. I know Paul said, I'm forgetting those things which are behind and I'm pressing ahead. But I need you to understand what Paul was talking about was those weights and sins that so easily beset him. But ain't nothing wrong with looking back at where you come from. There's nothing wrong with looking back to see all that God has done for you. When I think of the goodness of Jesus and all he's done for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah. I thank God for saving me. I thank God when I look back and see the neighborhood he brought me from. I thank God when I look back and see the family he raised me up out of. I thank God when I look back and see the level of education I received. I thank God when I look back and see how many of my classmates never made it to where I made it to. I thank God when I look back and read the statistics that said I would not make it to the age of 16. I thank God when I look back and read the statistics that said because my daddy was an alcoholic, I would be an alcoholic. I thank God when I look back. It's good to have a healthy sense of our insecurities. It's good to have a healthy sense of the things that we cannot do, because I now don't have a reason to impress you. I show up to a place and I don't try to be impressive. If I can be transparent, one of my greatest struggles, my first year of pastoring, is that I spent too much time trying to prove I belonged here. And the fact of the matter is, all the proof I need is that I was here. I spent so much time trying to prove that I was supposed to be the pastor of the church that I wasn't pastoring the church properly. But the moment I recognized that I'm here, not because I was the smartest, I'm here not because I was the fastest, I'm here not because I was the strongest, I'm here because I'm the solution to a problem that arose that God only trusted to me. And when you rest in that confidence, watch this. You stop being moved by your insecurity and you find security in God. And that's a word for some of us going into 22, because everything around you is reminding you that you should be insecure. But there's one thing you should always be secure in. I can't always be secure in myself. I can't always be secure in my finances. I can't always be secure in my friends, but I can always be secure in God. When you understand that what qualified you was that you were unqualified, you stop trying to prove things. I need you to put that in the comments. I don't have nothing to prove going into 2022. In fact, 2021 proved to me that I don't have nothing to prove to anybody, because it's only by the grace of God that I am where I am. And so I'm done trying to be impressive. I'd rather be instructable. And if some of you will be honest, the only reason you are where you are is not because you were so impressive. You just knew how to follow instructions. I'm here today, not because I was the most impressive preacher, but I knew how to follow instructions. I knew when I heard God telling me to do something. Everyone else may have said it didn't make sense. One of the greatest compliments I ever got was from a fellow preacher who I invited up to preach not too long ago. And he said, Pastor Mike, one thing I appreciate about you is that you've always been you. I had the pressure to try to be the next Bishop Riddick. But the truth of the matter is, I had to acknowledge that I can't do what Bishop Riddick does. But also I had to acknowledge that if he wanted me to do what Bishop Riddick does, he would have made me me Bishop Riddick, or he would have kept Bishop Riddick where he was. But God called me because I could do some things that Bishop Riddick can't do. He called me not because I was better, but because I was different. Can I help somebody? The text says, give us a king like everyone else. And God is so good that even though they asked for the same, God gave them a Saul. They said, give us what everyone else has. And he says, I know you're asking for what everyone else has, but I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you what you need. Even if what you need doesn't realize he's what you need. Not only when you understand that what qualified you, and I'm about to get up out of here because I've been here too long. When you understand what qualified you was that you were unqualified, you stop trying to prove things. But also, when you understand that you're unqualified, it keeps you reliant on the qualifier. When you understand that you're unqualified, it keeps you reliant on the qualifier. Can I tell you what keeps me coming here? I understand how so unqualified I am to be here. Not only here, but the company I work at. I'm so unqualified to be there. Some of the circles that I run in, I understand I'm so unqualified to be there. But what that does is it keeps me talking to God. It keeps me going back to the one who qualified me. Because God, they would disqualify me if they knew the truth. God, they would disqualify me if they knew where I came from. God, they would disqualify me if they knew I didn't have the degrees that they have. God, they would disqualify me if they knew I never went to the same schools they went to. God, they would disqualify me if they knew how much money I have or don't have in the bank. God, they would disqualify me if they know I didn't grow up in that denomination church. God, they would disqualify me. And so I rely on you because you qualified me. I ask God, why do you choose people who have such crazy insecurities? Think about it. Some of the people who've done the greatest things in the Bible had some of the greatest insecurities. It's the craziest thing. Moses sets millions of people free with a stuttering problem. And the crazy thing is, he has to do a bunch of talking to do it. God calls people with the craziest insecurities and uses them to do some of the greatest things. I said, God, why would you call Saul? Saul is so insecure. Can I tell you how insecure Saul is? On the day that Saul was to be anointed king, he decides to play hide and go seek. They cast lots and it falls on the tribe of Benjamin. They cast lots again, it falls on Saul's family. They cast lots again and it falls on Saul. And they say, well, did the brother show up? We don't see him. And God has to literally snitch on Saul and say, he's over there hiding in the supplies. Go get him. Saul is so scared to mess this thing up. And I don't know who that's for, but God is telling you, get back to that place where you were scared to mess it up. I need you to be so scared to mess it up that you hand it back to me. I need you to be so scared of messing it up that you start praying before you do that thing again. I need you to be so scared of messing it up that you trust me more than you trust your ability. Saul was so scared to mess this king thing up that on the day he's to be anointed, he's hiding and God has to snitch on him. God, why would you do this? And this brings me to my final thought. God chooses the least because it allows him to do the most. I'm going to say that again. God chooses the least because it allows him to do the most. Can I say it one more time for the Holy Ghost? God chooses the least because it allows him to do the most. Okay, you want to know why I failed public speaking twice, but he made me pastor? Because when the time came, I couldn't say it was my eloquence of speech. All I could say was to God be all the glory. The reason he chose you for that management position is because you didn't have the degrees. You hadn't been to management school. You didn't even have management experience. So when they gave you that title of manager, you could not say, oh, look, it was because of all my accomplishments. All you could say was to God be all the glory. The reason they chose you for that position in ministry is not because you talked in tongues. It's not because you could walk on water. It's not because you could break bread and fish and feed multitudes. It's not because you could say, peace be still, and the wind had to listen to you. No, 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 no. The reason he chose you with your jacked up background was to come into that church and flip it upside down, because God wants to do a new thing. Shall ye not know? And you were the new thing God wanted to do. And they could not look at you and say you performed a bunch of miracles. They couldn't look at you and say your daddy was a preacher. They couldn't look at you and say you perform miracles. All they could do was look at you and say, to God be the glory. We know where you come from, and there's no reason you should be where you are. And so we understand that the only reason you are where you are, the only reason you are who you are, is to God be all the glory. Because when you are the least, God is required to do the most. And the problem is we allow our insecurities to move us to start doing the most. Can I tell you what messed Saul up? The problem with Saul was not necessarily what he was doing, but that he was doing the most. Saul, it wasn't what he was doing, it's that he was doing the most. Again, Saul was positioned as the king. What gets Saul in trouble is that his insecurities, his needing to prove that he's supposed to be on the throne, he found himself stepping out of piety into priestliness. He stepped out of piety to the throne and started doing what the priest was supposed to do. And Samuel said, the devil is a lie. As long as the priest is still here, I need you to sit your happy butt on the throne. But Saul started doing the most because his insecurity, instead of running him to God, started running him into stuff that had nothing to do with him. And some of us have made the mistakes in our lives because we allowed insecurity to run us not to God, but to run us into things to try to prove we belong where we are. God chooses the least because it allows him to do the most. The reason God chose you when you're the least, you're the best of the least, is because it was an opportunity for you to be the stage God could perform on. See, we want to get on the stage, and God is saying, no, 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 I don't need you on the stage. I need you to be the stage. I need you to be the stage that I perform on. I discovered something today as I was preparing this sermon, and I'm going to close, that the position in football called the holder, so for some of you who need a visual of what that is, it's the person who holds the football for the person who's going to kick the field goal. I always wondered about that position. I did not even know it had a formal name, but it's called being the holder. What struck me about that position is not necessarily the insignificance of it, because here's a person that all they do is hold the ball. They hold the ball, and then someone else comes and scores. They don't score. They hold the ball, and someone else comes to score. What I discovered is that this position is often filled by two other positions. That this is not just a solidified position, but it's a position that's filled by other positions. I discovered that the position of holder is filled by either a punter or a second string or third string quarterback. That was interesting to me. Why not have someone who just is a holder? Why would you call someone who's supposed to be a quarterback who has to throw the ball? Why would you call someone who's a punter who kicks the ball? I discovered that these two positions are used for that position because to be successful in the position of being a holder, you have to have two things: good hands and good knees. Can I help somebody on tonight as we prepare to go into 2022? God is not calling you to be the quarterback. God is not calling you to be the running back. God is not calling you to be the wide receiver. God is not calling you to be the tight end. God is calling you to be the holder. Why? God is calling you to be the least because he wants to do the most. But here's the thing. The person who's the holder is no less a football player because his position is still vital to the success of the game. If you've ever seen a game that got down to the last few seconds and the score was only just 1 or 2 above, then it is the job of the holder to make sure that the ball is in position, which means he has to have good hands and good knees. Good hands and good knees. Can I help somebody? The devil thinks he's winning in 2021, but God is looking for some people with good hands and good knees. With my hands lifted up and my mouth filled with praise, I will bless thee, O Lord. God is looking for people with good hands and good knees. Those that say, I will pray, I will wait on the Lord, I will be of good courage, I will walk and not get weary, I will run and not faint. God is looking for people with good hands and good knees. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. What am I saying? God is looking for a holder with good hands and good knees because God is about to come and score. As we prepare to go into 2022, are there any holders in the house? I need you in your living room. I need you in your car. I need you, if you're watching this at a party, I need you to lift up your hands. I need you to get on your knees because God is looking for a holder because he's ready to kick your future into 2022. Can't nobody do me like Jesus. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. But God is looking for a holder. What makes the holder so valuable is that he doesn't do the most. The holder recognizes I'm a second string, third string quarterback. I might not get in the game to throw. But when they call me to hold that ball, I'm going to hold it. And God is saying, listen, I don't need you trying to be a quarterback. I don't need you trying to be a running back. I don't need you trying to be a wide receiver. I don't need you trying to be a tight end. I need you to hold it. And if you hold it, I'm going to kick it. And it's going to be all good.